Let's make the park system sheet metal tray. Start by putting on a pair of safety glasses. See your instructor for a piece of sheet metal tray, galvanized sheet metal. Then you're going to use a sheet metal gauge to determine the thickness of this sheet metal. You want to put the smallest slot that'll fit on that edge of sheet metal and show that to your teacher. 21 gauge. Layout. We'll start by using an electric engraver to engrave your initials in the center of the sheet metal. It's like an electric pencil. There you go. Now, we want to find the center of this long piece of sheet metal. So we measure the end of the sheet metal with a 24-inch steel ruler, and we find that the width of the metal is 10 1/2 inches. Well, we need to find the center, so that would be 5 1/4 inches. Make a mark with a Sharpie marker at 5 1/4. Do this at both ends. You can always check your work by measuring from the mark to the edge, and it should be the same on both ends. Again, 5 1/4 on the other end as well. Now we're going to connect the two dashes with our marker. Line it up with the ruler. Hold the ruler down firmly so it doesn't slide as you're drawing your line. There we go. Now you're going to be using a scratch awl to scratch the line on the metal. Usually go 2 passes with the scratch awl or scribe, and that cuts a nice groove into the metal that you can see. I'll zoom in here a little bit. Yeah, you can see the mark. Now we need a marking gauge. The marking gauge is a tool that marks parallel lines to the edge of the sheet metal. It has a semi-sharp point, and it has this movable fence that we can tighten up at different dimensions. The first dimension we want is 2 3/4 of an inch. We hold the marking gauge in our right hand. We hold the metal out over the edge of the table. You put the little fence up against the edge of the metal and slowly pull the marking gauge from the front to the back, and that'll make a parallel line at 2 3/4 of an inch in. Remember, don't run your finger along the sheet metal. That would cause an injury. That's one side, and you do the other as well. You're finished scribing. Now if you look at the two lines, you'll see they're equally spaced from the center of the sheet metal. Now we're going to reset our marking gauge to 2 1/2 inches. We loosen up the little thumb screw on the fence and we slide it forward to the mark we've made and tighten. Now that 2 1/2 inch line is going to be on the ends of the sheet metal. Same as you did before. Take your time, go slow. And we want to do it on the other end as well. Okay, a couple more lines we need to produce. This next line is going to be set at 3/16 of an inch. This is going to be for our hem. So set it for 3/16, and you're going to go all the way around the sheet metal, all 4 sides. You'll find this is a little easier since the scribe is real close to the fence. Again, always make 2 passes. Now the long side. Okay, one last setting. We're going to mark and set the marking gauge at 1/2 inch. Okay, at 1/2 inch, we're going to go around the border again. This sheet metal tray is going to have what's called a double hem. That's why we're drawing 2 lines along the edge of the metal. Good, and do that all the way around as well. Now that you've done that, we're going to put our ruler on that center line that we made, and we're going to mark at 3 1/2 inches. We're going to do this on both sides of the center line. Set the ruler at 3 1/2, and then you can mark at the end of the ruler. 3 1/2 inches from the center. And do that on both ends. Again, 3 1/2. Very good. Now we're going to use our combination square to scribe a line straight in from the mark we've made. So you bring the marking gauge up to the edge, grab your scribe, put it on the mark, and just draw it straight in, and draw it in about 1 inch. Same on the other mark that we made, that 3 1/2 inch mark from the center. It's kind of hard to hold everything together, but I think you'll get the hang of it. It's easiest to use the combination square when the metal is out over the edge of the table. Now, take a straight edge, and at the intersection of the 2 3/4 line and 2 1/2 inch line where they intersect, and line up with the line we just made, you're going to draw a line between the two. Again, 2 good pulls leaves a nice dark line that you can see. On the other side as well, the mark that we came in at 3 1/2 inches, where it lines up with that 1/2 inch line, draw that down to the intersection, and do that on both ends. Okay, now we have the mark there. We're going to draw a line back towards the center at a 45-degree angle. The combination square has a 45-degree angle on the back, and you want to put it tight against the edge of the sheet metal. Bring the tool forward until it intersects with the line you're going to draw, and that's at 1/2 inch and the 3 1/2 from center. Just draw that back in. Good. Now we need to make a tab for each end so we can spot weld the part together. So we want to mark 1/2 inch in from the 2 1/2 inch line that we made. And then we're going to use our square to draw a line in from the edge all the way to that diagonal line. And scribe your line there as well. Good. Now, to finish up the tab, we have to measure out from where the line meets that diagonal line. Yep, there it is. And set it for 1 3/4 of an inch. Then mark at the end of the ruler. 1 3/4. Draw your line out and mark. Good. Once you've done that, we're going to lay a template on the top to check our work. Set the template on top of the sheet metal. Make sure the edges and ends are flush or even with the edge. Find a Sharpie marker, and we're going to trace around the edge just to check our work to make sure our lines are correct. Wherever you see a hole punched, make sure you put a little dot there. Now that your marks are done, you want to locate a center punch and a ball peen hammer. You're going to put the center punch on each of those dots that you made and just strike lightly, make a little dent in the sheet metal. This will help us with our hand-operated hole punch later on. Now, we're ready to use our aviation snips. It's best to stand when you use the aviation snips, and you only want to make straight cuts. Don't try to turn a corner with the snips. It's best just to realign the tool and come at it from a different angle. So we'd come in, we'd cut all the way in from this direction. Remember, this cut edge will be sharp. You don't want to run your finger across it. Okay, make sure you cut right up to the line. Looks like I'm a little bit short. A little further. There we go. Again, just cut straight lines. It's okay to use two hands. Sometimes the metal is hard to work with. Extra pieces, just break them off and set them on the table. And you want to cut right to that dot you made. Again, you can bend the metal back and forth to break it off. And you'll do this all the way around. Now we're going to be using the press brake. The press brake is made for bending sheet metal, making hems. We're going to start with the red press bar, sharp side facing down, and put it in a little groove on the bottom that's called an anvil, and lower the handle slowly. Find the Allen wrench that sits up above, and you're going to tighten every other set screw. You don't have to tighten them all. Just snug them up so it holds the press bar in place. Return the Allen wrench and lift the handle. Make sure the handle goes all the way against the wall so it doesn't fall back and bump you. Okay, this is the anvil, and there are different types of grooves for different types of operations. We want to find the groove that's right down the center of the anvil. Set it back down in its spot. Good. And that red press bar will drop right down the center of it. This is the tool we're going to use to make the hem. To see the lines a little more clearly, find a Sharpie marker, and we're going to just darken that line, the half-inch line that we marked in from the edge, and also the 3/16 of an inch line that we drew. These are the folds for our hem. And do that all the way around the edge of the sheet metal tray where those two lines are found. We're going to set the sheet metal now underneath that sharp edge of the press bar on the first line that we see. That's the 3/16 of an inch line that we drew. And you're going to put the red press bar right on top of that line. You can set it down and just kind of move the metal a little bit. You want to look at the backside too to make sure it's nice and evenly spaced across the back. Just like that. Looks good. And when you're ready, you have to push down on that handle. You may have to apply a lot of pressure. It might take all of your weight, but you pull down hard until the metal bends up. Repeat that process all the way around the sheet metal tray. Remember, you're folding the first line for our single hem. Now that you've finished the single hem all the way around the sheet metal tray, we need to lower the handle and remove the sharp red press bar. Loosen the set screws that you tightened earlier. Now you want to hang on to the red press bar and lift the handle so it doesn't fall out of that slot. What we're going to do now is we're going to turn that press bar over. We're also going to turn the anvil to the flat side. Set it back in its slot there, and we're going to now put the flat edge of the red press bar facing down. Hold the red press bar, lower the handle, and then tighten every other set screw. With the press bar flipped over, we're going to flatten that first hem. We do that by laying the hem underneath the flat portion of the press bar, and then we pull down on the handle. That will lay that hem down nice and flat. Again, do that all the way around all four edges. When finished, we have to take the press bar out again to make our double hem. So loosen your set screws. We're going to turn the press bar again so the sharp side faces down, and then set our anvil for the groove that runs through the center of the anvil. Make sure you hang on to that bar, it'll drop right out. We're now going to form the second or double hem. We're going to run the sharp edge of the red press bar right along the edge of that finished first hem. A second hem, or a double hem, makes the edge a lot safer. It's not as sharp, and it also adds rigidity, or strengthens that edge. So bring your press bar down just on the black line that you drew. Okay, and again, you apply a lot of pressure on that handle until the metal is fully formed. Bring it up, and that's what your double hem will look like. You need to do this all the way around the tray. Now that you've done your second hem all the way around, we need to remove the press bar, turn it to the flat side, and lay down the second hem nice and flat. Position the hem underneath the flat side of the red press bar and pull the handle. And that's what your double hem looks like. We're now going to use the hand-operated hole punch. You'll find this in the tool cupboard. It is a small pin that will punch a hole through the sheet metal. We want to make a punch wherever we punch the metal with that center punch, where those dots are. Using a hole punch is a lot more efficient than trying to drill a hole through the sheet metal with a drill bit. A hole punch makes a nice clean hole, and it's less dangerous than a drill press. You may have to pull the handles apart to get the tool to release. Then what I do is I take a ball peen hammer and I just lay down this hem on either side of the tab. It makes the next fold a lot easier. So just flatten that edge right there. Doing all 4 locations. We now return to the press brake and we find the white press bar. It has a 90-degree edge on it. It'll also say tray on the front of it. It's the right length for this job. Tighten up a couple of those set screws, and we're going to make 90-degree bends on the ends of the tray. You want to find the V-notch or the 90-degree bend on the anvil and have that facing up towards the white press bar. Place your sheet metal on top of the anvil. You want to follow that line that you drew across the edge. That line is referred to as double A. Bring the sharp side of that white press bar down and set it right on top of the line that you drew. In this operation, you're going to be making a 90-degree angled bend on both ends of the sheet metal tray. Once in place, press down on the handle and you've made a 90-degree bend. Again, this is a forming process. Let's do the other end as well. Put the sharp edge of the white press bar right on the line that you scribed and press down. Very good. Now our next bend requires us to move these tabs out. We have to bend them out or they'll bump into each other as we make our bend on the sides. You can use your finger or you can grab a pliers and bend that out a little bit. Now we're going to bring the white press bar down and set it on that line, the long line. Make sure it sits right on top of it. Now we're not going to make a full 90-degree bend. It's probably going to be more like a 70-degree bend. So we don't want to apply too much pressure. We kind of got to watch so that we don't apply too much pressure, just enough to get that metal to sit up tight against that diagonal line that we drew. There we go. One side is done. Turn it around and repeat the process. Now that all our folds are done, we want to flatten those tabs. Grab a ball peen hammer and just tap them down flat. This will make our spot welding much easier. We're now going to spot weld. Find a file and file off any rough edges that might still be on the corners of the box. Put on a lab coat, grab some gloves and a face shield. Ask your instructor for a demonstration on how to use the spot welder. And you're going to assemble the product using the spot welder. These two electrodes come together and heat up and melt the metal together. We want to make sure we have it turned on. There's on. Make sure it's plugged in. Don't forget your face shield. You can adjust the size of the face shield with a little knob on the back side. Okay, so what the instructor is going to do is just put a tack weld, just a weld in the center of the tab. The spot welder is on a timer, so you push your foot down, hold it down, and you'll see the metal heats up until it stops. Then you can release the pressure on the pedal, and you can see that it's welded the sheet metal together. And we'll tack weld all four of the tabs. Alright, with all four tabs being finished, we are going to put a weld on either side of those center welds so that each tab has 3 spot welds on it to hold it together. We're now going to press form 4 feet in the bottom of the tray. Find the arbor press, make sure it's set up for this application. Grab the handle, put the pin kind of in the corner of the tool tray, and then pull down hard on the handle, and that will form a foot underneath the tray. So if you sit on a countertop and there's a nail there or something, it won't wobble back and forth. Do that to all 4 corners. Now we're going to prepare the handle. The handle is made out of conduit. Ask your instructor for a piece of conduit. You're going to clamp it in the metalworking vise. Snug it up, but not too tight because you can crush the pipe. Find your 24-inch steel ruler and a Sharpie marker, and we're going to mark this off so we know where to make the cut. Flush the ruler to one end and mark at 18 1/4 inches. Alright, now that's where our cut's going to be. We also need to mark in the center of that piece. Again, flush the end. We're going to mark it 9 1/8 of an inch. That is the center. We find the pipe cutter. The pipe cutter is kind of an interesting tool. It's got a hardened wheel. It's not wicked sharp, but it is sharp. And you want to clamp it on the mark that we made for the total length of the cut, 18 1/4 inches. Then we tighten the handle a little bit. As we turn the pipe cutter around the conduit, it makes a little groove. Tighten the handle again and just keep going around and round. And after several trips around the pipe, it will actually break right off. This is a pipe cutter. Now find the conduit bender and handle. Put the center mark on that little notch in the center of the bender. Tighten it up in the vise that's connected to the milling machine. Insert the handle, and now we're going to bend it. Pushing the handle towards the wall, it will create a 90-degree bend. We flip it over and we do the other side as well. We remove the bender from the vise and remove our handle. We can see that both ends have made a 90-degree bend. We're now going to fluidized bed coat the handle, or what we refer to as powder paint. You'll put the handle on the handle holder, put it in a 400-degree oven, let it sit in there for about 15 minutes, and then hook up the fluidizer box. This is a polyethylene powder with pigment in it, and we blow air through it. We take out the handle, still connected to the holder. It's going to be hot, so we want to use a pliers. And we're going to place that hot handle into this cloud of paint, and the plastic polyethylene powder is going to melt to the handle. Leave it in there for 10-15 seconds, take it out, and then we put it back in the oven, allowing it to bake and fluidize over the entire surface. When it's cool, you take it out, take the finished handle to the sheet metal tray, find 2 assembly fixtures. They're blocks of wood that fit into each end of the tray, and you're going to clamp those to the end, just like that. That'll hold it in place while you drill. Now you're going to be using a 9/64 inch diameter drill bit, and you're going to drill a hole into the conduit. Don't forget your safety glasses. Place the toolbox up against a vise so it has something to push against. And then you're going to drill carefully into the conduit, top and bottom. Then you're going to pop rivet the handle in place. And this is again an assembly process. We put the rivet into the rivet gun, place the rivet into the hole that we drilled, and then start squeezing the handles together, and open and close, and continue doing that until you hear the rivet pop. Good. And repeat the process to all 4 holes. And there's your finished project. Looks great.